We go to Greg in New York. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Greg.
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
What's on your mind tonight, Greg? Go ahead.
I'm here with my friend Vadim, and he brought up an interesting topic, which is the current immigration debacle. And I just wanted to know what you guys think of it. Basically, immigration is cool, but what if, in a libertarian society, I guess, if you have a country or a city or a state and the citizens are doing well, how lax would your immigration policies be? Would you make people sign a contract or turn them away? So what's your take on the current situation?
Well, first of all, I don't know if Centurion is a libertarian. I'm not really sure what his political viewpoint is.
I so want to hear it.
You don't have to be a libertarian to be involved in copblock.org. And we'll get your opinion on immigration here. I'll throw mine out first. I don't know what the current debacle is. I know that the government is definitely using immigrants as a political football between the Republicans and the Democrats. That much I'm pretty sure of. There's all kinds of stories usually in the news about these terrible, allegedly dangerous people coming here, but really,
in this case, it's teenagers.
The reality,
young kids.
The reality of immigration to me is that most of the people coming here just want a better life for themselves. And as far as I'm concerned, if you want to come to an ostensibly free place, you shouldn't have to ask some government bureaucrat's permission. So my ideal situation would be to abolish the immigration service,
Absolutely.
the INS or the ICE or whatever the hell they call themselves these days. Get rid of those bureaucrats and then just make it so anybody can come to a place as long as they've got permission to be there. So if I want
the property owner,
right, from the property owner. So for instance, Centurion, if you were not originally from, was it New York? Where are you from?
Yep.
So if you weren't originally from New York, but you were instead from Sicily or something like that. And I decided, I need somebody to come here to Keene to help me out with my radio broadcast, and I want to put you up in my house and give you a job. I should be free to do that, and nobody should be free to question me about that.
I think anybody that shows any amount of power or force towards any human being saying you cannot do this or cannot do that as a human being, there's a huge problem. So as far as immigration, just the word alone offends me.
Right.
Yeah.
We call it moving.
Traveling. So there you go. I think that pretty much sums up the position. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
Hang on a sec. You're kind of low there. I'm bringing you back up. Go ahead.
Can I just ask a question? This is my friend Vadim.
Your friend who?
Vadim.
Oh, Vadim. Okay, go ahead.
Yep.
I'm concerned. Aren't you guys afraid that if the borders were open like that, the country would be overrun by virtually billions of people?
No, absolutely not. I'm not afraid of people coming here to make a better life for themselves. The United States is prepared for a lot of people to come here. There are a lot of open spaces here. For instance, I think the numbers I've seen most recently were like 96 or 97% completely open. Basically, there's only 3 or 4% of the country that's ultimately urbanized in any meaningful way. So there's plenty of open space for people to come here and build new cities.
But I don't think anybody has the obligation to take care of these people. If they come here, their medical, their food, their housing, everything is their responsibility. They can rent a hotel room, they can rent an apartment, they can buy a house, they can have a travel trailer, they can build a shack on land they own.
Yeah, overpopulation is just fear-mongering. It's just straight-up fear-mongering from people who want to spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt about the idea of people coming here.
When they move
country.
here, they're going to buy food, they're going to buy gasoline, they're going to purchase housing, they're going to do all kinds of things to stimulate the economy. If you want to jumpstart the U.S. economy, allow people to come here and build a better life for themselves.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. I never heard that viewpoint before. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks for the call tonight. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. It sounds like a windy night there in New York. A little bit of phone noise in the background. But yeah, I think this is really one of the most important issues of our time, and also one of the most misunderstood, unfortunately, because people's lives are in the balance here. And when the government makes changes and they enforce these laws, then that destroys families, it destroys freedom, it destroys our freedom as well. I mean, the people that are out there clamoring for, we gotta stop those illegal immigrants. Well, guess what? You build that wall, it's going to keep you in.
They were here to begin with immigrants. Their great-grandparents were immigrants.
But they want to close the doors to the club now, Centurion. Now that they're in the club, well, we don't need any new members here, so we're just going to lock the rest of you guys out.
Any amount of force towards another entity, it just offends me.
It's horrifying.
It
actually
offends me.
It's horrifying. And if you look at the stories of like the factory towns, for instance, that the feds have gone in and they've raided businesses.
Feds.
They've raided businesses and taken a look at all their files and checked paperwork on all of their employees and rounded up their employees to the point where these businesses have had to shut down operations, and the towns have died because they're like little towns that are kind of built up around the existence of this business, and these towns have have had a very, very tough time.
Well,
after
the feds are
immigrants been
coming
taken
into
out.
shops in Keene that aren't owned by immigrants are still stealing their stuff. So it doesn't matter if you're an immigrant or not. They're still just going to come in and steal your stuff for no reason whatsoever.
Well, that guy's
Wow.
first name, I think, is Panos, and with a name like that, I imagine it wasn't too many generations away when his relatives moved here too.
Well, fat stuff?
Yeah,
Oh.
the smoke shop downtown.
Yeah.
So toll-free number here tonight, 855-450-FREE. Yeah, you shouldn't have to ask anybody's permission to move from one point to another. And if the United States wants to pretend like it's, a free place, then people should be allowed to come here.
It
But
sure sounds like the Berlin Wall to me.
you're right, Mark, that welfare shouldn't be available to those people, but I don't think welfare should be available to anybody from the government. I think that people who need help should turn to their friends and their neighbors and their communities and turn to local groups like charities to try to get help, and that we don't need some one-size-fits-all government program. But remember, when you build the wall is going to keep you in too. And if you don't think the wall is going to keep you in, you're fooling yourself. There's no time in history where the wall hasn't been used to keep you in.
Well, and the wall is figurative, too. People have all kinds of plans on how to make this whole immigration thing work, but all they have to do is enslaving other people. Let's do some checks on the road to make sure that they're not immigrants. Let's go house to house to make sure there's no immigrants here. And I hate this term, immigrant. These are just people who have moved. Immigrant is somebody who's moved across some imaginary line you're talking about.
You might as well just use the term contraband at this point. It's just
using the phrase immigration reform, too, on both sides. That offends me as well, because you're using a human being to get votes.
That's exactly. Political football is what they're turning humans' lives into. Ryan is listening in Massachusetts. Ryan, where are you at?
Correct.
Okay.
Massachusetts.
It says Palo Alto, Massachusetts. I've never heard of that place in Massachusetts.
I think I said the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
But, okay.
Either way. Palo Alto, it's good. It's fine. And, undisclosed location.
Very good. All right, go ahead,
anyway.
Ryan.
Okay, so I pretty much agree with you guys as far as the last your opinion on immigration laws and bureaucracy. But what if you owned like a giant ranch, or giant? Say you had 10 acres of land on the border. Say you lived in Texas, Mexico, and you said, as long as the property owner gives permission. Like, what if you had a big ranch and people just decided for a better life they wanted to move onto your ranch and start to, put a tent up and just live there?
Well, that would be a different story. That's private property.
What? Yeah. Why is it private? I mean, a certain amount of bureaucracy. Why is it private? Who owns it? Like that would be sort of a U.S. There was a bureaucracy involved.
You're comparing the jurisdiction of the United States to land ownership, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first off, to have a land, to own something, you have to have acquired it sort of legally and morally. The property you own, you paid somebody, likely a bank, and they're holding a mortgage over your head. They tell you own it when in fact they do. But nonetheless, you have acquired your property by exchanging goods or services or currency for it. The United States hasn't done that. It just went through, wiped out Native people, shoved them off into different areas. The force of the gun was present from the Revolutionary War all the way through. The fact is if you were of the 40% of people that didn't like that loved the king and wanted to stay with the king, they'd either kill you or you'd go along with it. There has been up to this point no voluntary association that goes with the U.S. So, they don't own the property unless you really do believe that the government owns your land, because they're telling you what you can do on your land. Now, if you're talking about people walking through your ranch to get into the United States, well, no, they shouldn't walk through your property to do that. And
unless you want them to.
But they wouldn't have to if they could take the road.
Yeah.
I love that.
I don't know. I guess.
Are you a trucker?
I think it's my
Professional
phone's
driver.
Sorry.
What's that?
Professional
anyway,
driver.
I just think I don't know. I think it's a tricky situation because who allowed? I can't really formulate, but someone allowed that person to get that land. It probably goes way back. Like it's almost like with the Bundy Ranch situation.
Sure, that's
Like,
complicated.
what if a bunch of immigrants had decided that they wanted grazing rights? They wanted just kind of homestead that. Would the Bundy Ranch people be upset with that? Because why not? It's a big open land. Who
Are we
owned
talking
it?
about homesteading the government property? Just to be clear.
Yeah, or even if just who decides that
I support
rancher
that.
bought
I
that?
support people homesteading government land.
But
Screw that. Take it back from
the
them.
Bureau of Land Management just
Yeah, I
simply
agree with you on
claimed that land for the Bundys, so that's a different situation. You're not talking about really government land in many ways.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought we were
But
talking
even if
about.
you're-
Whoa, just to be clear, I thought we were talking about the Bundy Ranch folks were grazing on public land managed by the Bureau of Land Management, and you were talking about
Yeah.
homesteading public lands, correct?
Yeah, well, originally, say you have so-called privately owned land on the border of Mexico and Texas. Who do they get that land from? They probably bought it from who knows where they got it from. Like,
So you're
why
questioning the
can't
title. You're questioning the private landowner's title
who
to the
owns
property.
that? I mean, sure, who owns that? I mean, it all goes back to someone, a bureaucrat somewhere, that claimed ownership of that land.
You could certainly point out that the
Mexican
land in question likely was owned by somebody from, it's stolen from somebody in the past when the United States came in.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that the person who bought it, in their mind, legitimately from the bank, doesn't own it at this point.
Yeah.
Somebody owns that property, and if they want to allow people to cross through, they certainly are free to do so.
To me,
So
if you want
which-
to have a free country, you're going to have to let free people cross the borders of a free country, or you don't have.
Right, you either
free
have that
people
or
in
a free.
country.
You either have that or you have a police state. I mean, it's your choice. It's one way or the other.
I absolutely agree with you. But
Centurion,
I
you
think
wanna-
it comes down to what is ownership, I guess, and is there?
Well, yeah, and that is a good
like-
question. And there's an argument to be made that I think there's an argument to be made that if you have a large plot of land where you're doing nothing with it, that somebody could come in and homestead it, regardless of who that is. Although there's also a strong argument to be made against that as well.
At this point, all land has title, so we don't really have to worry about homesteading that much. I mean, the government's going to claim it, but I think that the government usually mostly abuses it.
Centurion, you were trying to jump in there.
Well, he answered it when he answered you.
Very good, Ryan. Anything else you want to share tonight?
No, I'm still confused, but thanks, guys. I love your show.
Thanks for the call. I do appreciate hearing from you. I mean, even if you're
This is a complicated
I
issue,
think that-
and most people don't agree with us.
No, there's no doubt. But even if you're uncomfortable with the idea of people coming here, I would hope you're more uncomfortable with the idea of a police state, with the idea of having to stop and show identification at various random checkpoint locations throughout your
Well,
city.
like the Bitcoin thing. I'm so used to money. It's hard to look at something or even grasp something else. He's so used to the power and the oppression. It's hard to grasp that someone actually owns that instead of the government owning it.
And it's not like all the rules have stopped people from moving here. They haven't stopped it. All they do is they make it difficult for them to quit jobs, make it difficult
live
for them
openly.
to move up the social ladder. All they do is turn them into a second-class citizen or something close to an indentured
almost
servant.
a slave, yeah.
Or a class.
You know that if it was you over there, you would do what it took to feed your kids and to make a better life for them. Why in the world? I mean, people call themselves Christians, and then they wouldn't do unto others as they would have them do unto them.
Yeah.
It's insane to me.
I don't know if I had two children, let's say I was in Juarez, Mexico, and I had two children and I'm homeless. Why wouldn't I want to bring them somewhere where it's better?
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.